Well, we're back with another discussion about MedtechVISION, and I am fortunate to have included on this is Laurel Burk and Debbie Donovan. I've known them both for a while. Thanks so much for joining.
Glad to be here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. It's great to have people who are on the inside on the day-to-day of how this is all put together to give some insight on what it's like to create an event like this. I mean, it was a bit of a happening last year, and it would be nice for everyone outside to understand, well, it doesn't happen by accident. You know, these are some of the things that we do to create all of it. So let's start there. I'm curious from last year's standpoint, because it was quite an event, and I still keep thinking about how I felt when I left there. What was it like for you? Debbie, what was your takeaway when you left last year, when you got in your car? What were you thinking?
I really liked that we were diverse. We were intentionally diverse with the panelists, not just from the perspective of ethnicity, but also to make sure that there were different voices from different types of companies. So there was diversity almost at a Rubik's Cube level, which was hard to manage on the inside, but in the end, it just totally changed the dynamic of the room, I felt.
How about you, Laurel? How did it end for you? What were your thoughts as you were wrapping up?
I really liked being on the inside of things. I'm not like a front of the room person. I'm a back of the house person. And I loved being part of making the event. You know, it's right even down to even getting ready for the VIP event the night before. You really get to know people. You develop relationships with the team. And, you know, even my panelists, I think, you know, I developed a kind of a relationship with them and a friendship, and I loved everybody. I was excited to do it again this year simply because you do get to be involved in this. And I get so much out of MedTech women. It's nice to be able to give back. And this is how I do it with, you know, with the organization and with all of the women who work so hard on this. They're so passionate about it. And I really love that energy of everybody coming together to make a wonderful event happen.
Well, there's something amazing about doing something for the second time, because you get to get over whether it's jitters or first time, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. Maybe you're too focused on being concerned about the outcome as opposed to really enjoying it. Do you think this is going to be a different experience for you now that you've kind of got one under your belt?
Well, yes, for sure. And it's sort of dual. And that's kind of classic MedTech women, is every MedTech women event has to meet a dual mandate of delivering excellent content and the best networking. We're really good at the networking part. So the intimidating part is the delivering of great content. And so for me, I attended the inaugural event back in 2010, and it electrified me. And so my mandate for myself is to make sure that the panelists that I've create, you know, that we create, that panel discussion, that content is electrifying. If I don't get electrified hearing their stories, they're not going to make my panel. Yep. So that's a huge part of this, is electrifying.
Well, that's what leads me into the next thought, is I find the concept of building a panel and finding a moderator to be fascinating. So Laurel, let's start with you. You know, you're putting together one of the panels. How do you decide? I guess you have to decide the topic first, and then you start filling out the people. But I'm curious of the process. So where do you begin? When you have a whiteboard in front of you, how do you start?
Well, we're lucky that our co-chairs, Stephanie and Lisa, are really pros at this. They really mentor us through all of it. So, you know, they're the ones that really kind of come up with the overall theme. Then they break it down into these panels. And this one's going to be an amazing program this year, because we're finally doing women's health. And, you know, we've tried to be so much more than just women's health and industry. But this time we are focusing on women's health. It's really important right now, considering everything that's been going on. So Lisa and Stephanie put together kind of the overall theme. And then they start talking about the panels, and we all get together as a group and we start kind of dissecting down, what is it that we want out of each panel? What does this make sense? Do we break this out? I think at one point women's health was just going to be one panel. We started talking about it and it became the whole theme. So there's a lot of fluidity, there's a lot of cooperation, and we talk to each other and we collaborate on really what we want to do, distill it down. And then we start talking about each panel individually, and what do we want? A strategic? Do we want a venture capitalist? Do we want small company, large company? And then finding the women within those personalities of those different ventures. Who do we think would be a great fit and be a dynamic speaker and somebody who could really contribute a lot to all of our understanding of the topic?
Well, it's funny. To me, sometimes I'll get a project to work on where I have to find an executive, and it's almost like going to the Cheesecake Factory. There's too many choices, and I don't know who to call first. And I wonder if you all go through that. I imagine you do, because there's an embarrassment of riches of talented women who live in the area or who would fly in for this. Like, how do you narrow it down? It must be the hardest part of the job, is saying, okay, let's just start with these folks here.
Right.
Well,
and
I was just going to say that because this year's theme is diversity, equity, and inclusion, MedTech Women has a sister organization called MedTech Color.
Mm-hmm.
And so because my panel is on health equity equals ROI, so basically the business case for health equity, the first person I called were the people over at MedTech Color, because I knew that they would have the folks in their group of speakers and award winners, or they have a contest that they do every year for new products and services that are brought to market. And in fact, one of the winners this year is our patient speaker. So tapping into MedTech Color was sort of first thing I had to do. And then one of the dynamics is that as we run into people and we hear different stories, the panel leads, we kind of start horse trading a little bit. Hey, I have someone that might be good for you. And we kind of go back and forth and say, hey, they're not quite right for me, but I think they might be the right one for what you're trying to hit, So it's not just Laurel does hers, I do mine, Kate does hers. We all kind of work together to figure out who is the right mix. So again, we try to have this Rubik's Cube of representation of companies and all the different aspects of this. And that's what makes great content.
Laurel, what's your approach?
That's exactly what we were doing. Is we kind of started with a pool of, these are some great women, very influential. They're in these industries that are particular to what we need. And then it's kind of like a menu. Okay, she'd be great here. The other part of it, though, is a lot of these women, they're executives, they're busy and getting on their calendar. We start in June trying to put this together. And there's some people who just can't make it. So we have our top list, and then we have others, and then we all try to kind of balance. Sometimes there's an abundance, and you have to limit it to 4 panelists and a moderator. You sometimes have an abundance, and then you have to make a decision, which is hard. We all try not to do that, and we try to stick with just focusing on a few people that we think would be great, and then hope that they make it. And if they don't, then, do you know somebody in your organization? Because sometimes it's the organization that's also important. So can we get you in? If you can't make it, can you recommend a colleague? So that we kind of stay within the focus of where we really want to be, but we look for people who are actually available. Sometimes that's the hard part. Mm-hmm. It's who's actually available.
Following up on
finding people who can travel.
Oh, yeah, I would say that's definitely it. So what about the moderator? Because that's a totally different request. Mm-hmm. And do you ever take a chance on someone who's never done that before, or do you always find somebody who's been a moderator before?
So far, my moderators have done it before. We do try to find people that are good speakers, that are comfortable in front of a group. It makes a huge difference. I think this year is kind of special, and Kate is moderating her own panel.
Yep.
And I don't know if she told you
She
this,
did.
but she kind of came across as a little bit like, do you guys mind if I do this? And we're like, yes, absolutely. Rock, blow it out of the water. She's a rock star, and this is what she got her PhD in. So of course you're moderating. So we get moderators from different places. It's kind of fun.
What about if somebody is ideal for whether moderating or being on the panel, but they're hesitant, either they're shy or I've never really done this before, but that they're spot on for it? How do you, without pushing, encourage them? Because I know there are plenty of people, men and women, who are like, man, I'm not so sure anybody's looking to hear what I have to say and all that kind of thing. Like, Debbie, how do you overcome that when you know that they're ideal for this?
Usually what I do is I get them comfortable with what they're going to be asked. So the good news is there are no slides that go with our panels. So that's important. And they're not on the stage alone. So that's another issue. And they will know what they're going to be asked. So they have lots of time to think about how they're going to answer the question. And in a 1-hour panel with 5 people, do the math, no one person is going to be speaking that much. And so this is why what Laurel said, getting people together beforehand now we do it, of course, on Zoom, having everybody meet at the VIP reception so that they recognize each other in person, that just ups the comfort level for everybody, even with an experienced speaker. So for somebody who's inexperienced or is not sure, I just really do my best to encourage them to make notes about what they want to say, what key points they want to make. And usually they don't have there's not that much content that they deliver, but what they deliver is really powerful and electrifying. Mm-hmm. And these are stories they're used to telling too. So we're not asking them to sell it to management. Mm-hmm. They get to actually have some opinions here about how they're going to convey the information. That's actually what makes it interesting. Yeah. Is they're little there's you can say things one way and then you can kind of wink, nod, and everybody in the room gets it,
Well, the good part is last year I sat in on some of the panels. I was doing interviews in other parts, so I missed parts of it. But the ones I saw, number one, I saw there was just no shortage of questions. So clearly everybody was engaged, almost to the point where they were running late because there were too many. I don't mean to scare you guys, because I know staying on time is important to both of you, but that's just the nature of when you get the right panel and moderator together. The people don't want it to end. Mm-hmm. And so that's the other thing that I probably would tell the other folks if they were thinking about them, like the engagement, if you weren't there last year, is awesome. You're gonna have no shortage of people excited and wanting to talk to you afterwards, and who knows what this does for your visibility, your career, what have you. So we should talk about that a bit. The feeling that I get from the outside is that MedTech Women is this incredible amplification of what the members are trying to accomplish in their career. And I'm curious how it affects each person. And so let's start with you two. When you first joined versus today, what would you say has been some of the larger impacts of being a part of the organization has had on your career progression or your professional development? I'm curious what it's done for you.
So I can jump in on this. I went to the first one in 2010, and I have attended all but one since, and I've been volunteering with the group with basically whatever MedTech Women will let me do. So I also am part of the board development committee with Nancy Lynch. So one example is that I thought I wanted to be a board member, so that's why I volunteered on the committee. And through my work on the committee, I've figured out that I want to be a board advisor. And so I'm actually starting to think about what that looks like for me and build the bio that I need rather than the resume to be able to do that. And then the other part is in my day-to-day, I can't tell you how many times I've had the conversation with myself, stand, like Superman, and say, you will ask for that title. You will ask for that promotion. You will ask for that compensation, and you will not be you will not be a shrinking violet about it. And I got that confidence because so many women showed that and demonstrated that telling their stories in MedTech Women scenarios, whether it's at MedtechVISION or some of the other smaller group activities that we do or group meetings. And so seeing that over and over and over again really, really helped me to have that confidence when I really needed it.
Yep.
And I thought, you know what? Deb wouldn't back down and
No.
Amy wouldn't back down.
No, they
So
wouldn't.
I shouldn't back down either.
Laurel, what about you?
It's very aspirational. You know, you hear these women's stories and they, you know, we all start at the same level pretty much. And it's how did you get where you are? What were the steps that you took? You know, and to Debbie's point, it's talking to women about, yep, I had to ask for this. I had to ask for this. This is how I did it. Here's how I'm going to do it. And here's how you should do it. Here, think about this. Have you thought about this approach? You know, everybody is so willing to say, here's how I did it. Here, you know, what's your situation? There was a point where MedTech Women had a mentorship program, which I took advantage of. And, you know, talking to Mika Nishimura about, you know, how do I deal with being in a startup, and constantly startups change all the time. How do I manage that change? And she was incredibly helpful. And they're all, you know, you walk up to anybody at that organization and say, have you ever done this? Do you know somebody who has? And if they haven't done it, they'll find somebody who did. They know someone who went through it, and everybody's willing to help. I mean, I have never had somebody go, you know what? No, I can't help you. Sorry. It's always, oh, you know what? I can't help you, but this one, oh, let me introduce you to her because she's fabulous and she's going to be amazing. And, you know, it's just, it becomes the best of what women do, is the connecting and the support and the nurturing and the encouragement. It's really what women are good at. And it really shows in this group.
Well, yeah, that brings me to my next point. By the way, Mika Nishimura is, well, let's not say this out loud, but she's one of my favorite people. I've known her forever. And when I tell you she's been good to me whenever I've needed anything, she calls back immediately. Yep. And she's just, and plus she's funny as all get out. She's terrific.
Yeah, she really is.
But my thinking is how welcoming the event is. And let's talk about this from both of your standpoints, because you both have been to so many. If I'm new, and I'm relatively early in my career, let's say, in comparison to some of the other folks that have been doing it for 10, 20 years, how does it feel coming in and sitting at a table surrounded by these individuals? You know, how do I get to know them? And I want to convey how just open it is. So if you guys could give some insight to what it's like to not be nervous about coming for your first time, you're going to love it.
I always have a goal of, I need to meet X number of new people. And so a lot of times when I'll see somebody standing by herself, you know, kind of, you know, that look, they're kind of, it's like at the party when you don't know anybody at the party, you know, that look. So, you know, I have no problem going up to people and saying, hey, I'm Laurel, how you doing? You know, is this your first time? You know, or is this your third time? Or, you know, you can start talking about that. And then, you know, every once in a while I'll meet somebody. It's like, you know what, you need to meet, you know, Deb or Amy, or, you know, and I'll bring them over and say, you know, Deb and Amy, these, you know, these are the people who started all of this. And they're always welcoming. They're always encouraging. They're always happy to meet people. And I think meeting the leadership of the team, of the group, and how warm and friendly and welcoming they are really kind of sets the tone for everybody else. And I hope, you know, that people come back, you know, again and again, because even to the other events, not just the MedtechVISION, but the events that we have during the year, because they are so helpful. And it's just, it's a really fun group of people we're all driven. We're all excited about what we do. We all share the same passions. And it's just, it's a really good, solid group of people.
Yeah, the event is, and this is 20 years of doing this, of going to events all around the world. I've never been to anything like this, where everyone is so happy to see each other. And even if they don't know you, they're like, hey, you must know so-and-so. Oh, I used to work at that company, or I went to school there. And it is the most engaging. And you know what I think resonated the most for me, and Debbie, I'm curious what you think, is it never felt like work or business. It felt like almost like a celebration. Am I wrong in that? I mean, that's the way it felt to me.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the whole point, is that we celebrate women, powerful women. If you think about the origin story, it's Deb and Amy on their Blackberries, texting back and forth to each other saying, we're done with Manels. We need to put something together where we put women in the front, because we know tons of them who can speak to really important topics in medical device of all different sections of medical device, not just marketing and commercialization, but VCs and R&D, quality, regulatory, reimbursement. Like, we know so many people. Why are they not being invited? And I think what happened in that first one that has continued from the very beginning is the panelists would get up there and say, it is really cool to be sitting next to these ladies right here, but holy mackerel, I am looking out at a sea of really great people. And by walking in the door, you basically know I am surrounded by exciting, interesting women. Done. Like, we bring it. All of us bring it every time. Even if you are early in your career, you're bringing it. You don't know, maybe, or not confident about the fact that you're bringing it, but you're bringing it for sure. And we want to know about you. We want to learn who you are. And if you're early in your career, we want to help figure out how you're going to progress and what you're interested in. And we want to help you. So, and I think that, to Laurel's point, that's what women do best in the world. And this is just a really focused, curated, concentrated experience of all of that. So that's what I would say, certainly for new people coming.
I just saw no one standing by themselves. And I saw everyone being welcome. Please sit down, take a seat. You know, it's funny. I didn't sit down intentionally because I was running around with a microphone, but I was watching how no one was left alone. And I think that's a powerful way to look at this, in that it's not just inclusion, it's participation, and it's encouragement and validation that the organization just perpetuates over and over and over again. And that's why I love that these panels and these moderators are all people that can bring perspective to it, but they're also people that may not have had as much of an opportunity on some of these other panels and other conferences. And so it's great that you all have this platform. It truly is a moving experience. So I'm curious how you expect it to feel. So Laurel, when it's over and your panel breaks, the ideal outcome is what? Like, what are you expecting it to be when it's done?
I hadn't really thought about that. What I hope is, so last year, my panel was made up primarily of women who had never participated before. And so what I hoped was, not only was I able to introduce new people to MedTech Women, but to introduce MedTech Women to some new people. I need to follow up. I haven't yet. It's on my list to do, is to follow up with my panel to see if they're going to come this year. You know, I would hope they would. And I hope this is something that they get a lot out of, and, you know, continue to be contributing in any way to, you know, the whole organization.
Yeah, it is, even if you can't make it, there's going to be a total virtual experience that a lot of people have already signed up. The good news is they're not limiting that. So please don't think, oh, well, I can't make it, I'm out of town, or I don't live in the Bay. Well, absolutely sign up. You're going to be involved with this. We're going to do work with the panels afterwards to let you ask any questions that you like. There's going to be a significant amount of interaction. This is not just an in-person only event. And so we expect there to be a significant amount of participation from people who are all getting together, maybe a watch party or some other type of event where you're doing it yourself. And so I'm sure that you all have been made aware of what we're trying to do from the virtual side. Well, the event is September 12th at the Rosewood in Palo Alto. I would highly recommend that you sign up if you want to be there in person, because the seats do go fast. And that means today. MedtechWomen.org. Give it a look. You're going to be pleasantly surprised at not only the organization, but the event and the people behind it, because everything that Laurel and Debbie are saying is actually true. There is no sales going on here. This is the reality of the situation. So with that, is there anything else from either of you that you'd like to cover to make sure that we amplify the message of this event?
I would say the event, it's an investment. It's an investment in your network. It's an investment in your future. It's an investment in really getting inspired. My favorite part of it really is the speaker, the patient speaker. I don't know where they find these patients, but holy cow, we were standing up in our seats last year, clapping and shouting and cheering. In 2020, when we had the virtual speaker, she was still so compelling. It's just like, I keep looking for the video of her presentation because she was amazing. And, you know, she was this African-American woman who had a heart condition and and she was a physician. And every time she went to the doctor, she had to explain every single time, this is who I am. I am a physician. Don't, you know, and what women go through as patients is just, it gives you a whole different perspective when you're doing your day-to-day work in this industry. You really remember the patient perspective. And that's, you know, one of the things we haven't talked about today is that patient speaker who really brings all of what we do. It brings it home to why we are doing what we're doing. And I don't think any of us are in this just to make a paycheck. These are passion projects for so many of us, because we all get sick. We all have family members who get sick or need something or need help. And we really want to make sure that we are taking care of people. And this is the way we can do that.
Debbie?
I will echo what Laurel is saying, and I will add to it by saying that I can guarantee one thing for any attendee, whether they're in person or online, and that is you will be electrified. You will get goosebumps, and you will be inspired to keep going. Medical, healthcare, this is not just a job. It's not just a paycheck. It's an avocation. This is when people go to sell consumer products, it's not as interesting as what we do. And I would even suffice to say, I had a friend tell me once, medical devices are kind of boring. And then I took them to a Da Vinci test drive event, and they were like, medical devices are not boring. They're very, very interesting and very cool. And I think Laurel and I have both had the opportunity to work in lots of areas of the body. And we love that. We love that we get that exposure and that knowledge for ourselves, for our family members. And this is our world. This is what we love to do. And the two of us are just the tip of the iceberg of all the people that are coming to the event virtually and in person. And I will just say that this year, there's been a focus on making sure that the in-person and the virtual event has had a dedicated person looking at how we would enhance that experience. So it's not going to be your classic just sit on the Zoom call thing. So bring it. Be prepared to bring it.
Yeah, it's going to be a happening, and the people that are there, it's just one after another of talent and good human beings and looking to help someone else. You will not be disappointed. Well, Laurel, Debbie, thanks so much for joining. It was as good as I expected. I will keep you apprised of as things develop as we get closer to the event, but I'm sure you all are busy enough, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Great.
Great.
Nice to see you, Matt.
Looking forward to it. Take care.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.